Hello and welcome to another video on the JJ Think Tank. I hope you're doing well this morning. Today I want to talk about the role of the intellectual in society. And based on this, link some other thoughts of mine as to why the intellectual is so important, why everyone as an individual needs to find their respective role in society, both as an intellectual, I would argue, but also as part of a workplace environment. So obviously, as we grow up, as we learn more about ourselves and we understand ourselves more, we are able to notice exactly what makes us tick, what doesn't, and through this process, our mental health improves. I'll tell a little bit about myself now, some personal history. So, for a while, really, I was confused as to what to do with my life. I'm sure everyone has been in the same situation. I think this is obviously a human condition. We are thrown into the world, as Heidegger famously said. We are thrown into this world with a set of cultural behaviors, yes, cultural rules, cultural norms that we are a part of. We are thrown into a world with a set of genetic characteristics, and we are thrown into a world with a specific family, yes, and we don't really have much control over all of this. We suddenly appear in this world, and when we are children and teenagers, we don't really think about this. We just enjoy life. But then, obviously, as we get older, various crises appear, ups and downs, and we kind of need to find ourselves again and establish our identity. And by identity, I don't only mean kind of a ethnic or political or this historical identity. In this video, in this sense, by identity I mean our role in society. How can we positively benefit society? And with regards to this question, this book was really good. I thought it was a brilliant book. It was written by Steve Fuller, and he talks about the intellectual, the differences between the intellectual, the academic, and the philosopher. He also goes into the difference between Continental philosophy and Analytic philosophy. So this is a perennial question, and the two camps are forever at war. So that the Continental philosophers are at war with the Analytic philosophers. But yes, this book really made me understand myself more. I realized that in many ways I am an intellectual because, as I will go into later, an intellectual, he picks and chooses from various disciplines in order to arrive at a more wholesome truth that is, well, that appeals to the ordinary citizen and his common sense, yes, his grasp of common sense, logic, and wisdom. So this is why the intellectual is so important, and I think it's a shame that intellectuals have such a negative reputation. There are reasons for this, which I'll go into soon. But intellectuals are really important because I think they are people, individuals who are able to become heroes in a sense, yes, and save society from much catastrophe. So returning now to my personal history, my background, I tried various roles in society. I was interested in different subject areas. So initially chemistry. When I was a teenager, I was fascinated with chemistry and biology, but to a lesser degree. Chemistry was my main passion. After that, this was translated into pharmacy. So I enrolled onto a pharmacy course, but then I realised that I don't really want to work and serve big pharma, and therefore I quit this course, and I don't have any regrets. I am very proud of this decision, very proud indeed. And yes, after this I was lost. Yes, I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't know what my interests were, and I was reading a lot of books. I was starting to read books about history, about politics, philosophy, and I came to the conclusion that I'm more interested in the humanities and social sciences. And so I enrolled onto a course at the University of Liverpool, History and International Relations. Well, the course was named slightly differently, but it was pretty much the course was about this. Yes, these were the two subject areas, and I studied this for 3 years over there in Liverpool. And then after that, I realised that I needed something more. Yes, because the intellectual he requires philosophy, and this is what Steve Fuller recognizes. Let me just find the quote of his here about the intellectual. Yes, so here we go. The intellectual is a philosopher without the benefit of Plato's spin. So intellectuals were born on the back foot. This is what Fuller writes here about intellectuals, and this is true, because intellectuals they're not part of a specific subject area. Yes, they're not controlled by the rigors of academia, but neither do they fall into the metaphysical realm of the philosopher. Yes, they reject metaphysics because they believe that metaphysics is a cop-out. It's a way for philosophers to enter their ivory towers in order to avoid responsibility and to take action in order to improve society. Yes, and this is the beauty of the intellectual, and why intellectuals are so necessary, because they appeal to the common sense wisdom of man and the public aspect of humanity, the public character of humanity. There was one extra thing I wanted to note about Big Pharma, so I forgot now. I quit Big Pharma. Well, I quit pharmacy because of Big Pharma, but also for another reason. There was something in my mind, but I forgot now. Maybe it will return, but never mind. Let's move on. So I began my article with this quote by Steve Fuller, and it goes as follows: "My own view has always been that a post-truth world is the inevitable outcome of greater epistemic democracy." And this is a brilliant quote. It really gets to the heart of the matter. We are living in a post-truth world. this is undoubtedly true. It's hard to determine what the ultimate truth is. By truth, I mean truth with a capital T, because there's so many different perspectives. And here, I like to think of Nietzsche's perspective. So he had this thought that this kind of philosophical paradigm called perspectivism, and a perspective theory or view of truth, which basically, well, it's a form of relativism, really, and I guess this is kind of appearing now in our postmodern world. People from different ethnic backgrounds or societal backgrounds, etc., they have a different view on what's going on. And this is due to greater epistemic democracy. We have the spread of information. People have perhaps more time on their hands to research topics, to broaden their knowledge, and come to their own conclusions. Yes, they don't submit themselves to the version of events provided for by the mainstream media. Of course, we should obviously reject totally the mainstream media and what it provides, the information it provides, but we need to question. We definitely need to question the power structure, because so much has happened recently that shows that they people in power they obviously lie a lot, and this has been going on for ages, probably for maybe even for centuries, for millennia. Who knows, really? But based on my experience, obviously it's been going on for a while. We can think of the Iraq War. For example, the myth that there were weapons of mass destruction. That obviously wasn't true, and so yes, again here this is the role of the intellectual. He comes in like Daredevil. Yes, so Daredevil is a superhero. Character analysis. Yeah, so Daredevil is a deeply conflicted, principled hero, embodying contradictions as a devout Catholic who acts as a violent nocturnal vigilante and a blind lawyer fighting for justice. Known as the man without fear, he is defined by relentless determination, extreme guilt, and a dedication to protecting Hell's Kitchen, often at great personal cost and self-destruction. So, the Daredevil is someone who is a character, yes, a superhero character that reflects kind of the mentality of the intellectual, I feel. And Venom as well. If we look at Venom, so Venom, yes, is a complex anti-hero. I don't view Venom as a villain. I view him more as a complex anti-hero who has a symbiotic bond, yes, with well, in the actual comic series, he has a symbiotic bond with an alien symbiote. And here we think of Socrates, yes. So Socrates, he always referred to his daimon. So let's go here and check this out. Daimon. The daimonion or daimon, I think is how we pronounce it, was a personal divine inner voice or sign that Socrates reported experiencing since childhood. It functioned as a conscience or warning system, solely prohibiting him from making mistakes or taking harmful actions, rather than telling him what to do. This spiritual guide was central to his moral decisions that led to charges of impiety. And here, in some sense, this symbiote is like the daemon. Yes, it's like the daemon of Socrates. And so Venom, he is this kind of self-contradictory anti-hero. He's at war with himself. Yes. So on one level, he's a ruthless protector, but he also has a warped sense of morality. Yes, and he's driven by vengeance, but also he has a savior complex. So this is what the intellectual is. He has this, we could say, peculiar personality. Yes, and Steve Fuller goes into this. I'll read a bit more about the personality of the intellectual in a moment. But before I do so, I want to share some of the thoughts that I wrote down here. So yes, the academic, philosopher and intellectual all have their role to play in society, but I think it is important to notice the differences between them, their strengths and weaknesses, and ultimately the positive role that the intellectual plays with his negative thinking as the intermediary between the two. So by the two I mean the academic and the philosopher. And so yeah, Steve Fuller in his book The Intellectual, he really put the words into my mouth when it came to this topic. It was a really enlightening experience for me when I finished reading this book and as I was reading, because I understood myself much more, and made me realise that I am definitely an intellectual as opposed to an academic or a philosopher. So at heart, I consider myself to be an intellectual, but I do have this inclination to philosophize because philosophy is necessary, since it constantly questions our underlying assumptions, both about reality and also topics to do with the social sciences, history, etc. Yes, and just one example is Nietzsche's view of history. So with the thought of Nietzsche, we can approach history from a different perspective on the use and abuse of history for life. Meaning. Oh, you see, Nietzsche argued that 19th century society was suffering from a sickness of too much historical knowledge, which paralyzed action, creativity, and life itself. So this is a brilliant thought. Nietzsche on history. I really recommend everyone to read Nietzsche's perspective on history, because it will enlighten you, and it will help you approach history from another angle, because there are some historians that they put too much weight and emphasis on history, and because of this they think that history will always repeat itself, whereas other people they learn from history and see that there's still another course of action. Yes, that is possible to realize. Yes, and so this is what Nietzsche wrote. He argued history should serve life rather than merely document the past. Exactly. And he recommended a balance of three approaches: monumental for inspiration, antiquarian for identity, and critical to break with the past. So this is definitely true. And for instance, when I applied this thought to Poland, I would argue that a lot of Polish historians they talk a lot about the past, but they are unable to break with it, and because of this, they constantly have this hate and this passionate hate for Russia, for example, which doesn't serve the Polish cause ultimately. And yeah, it's just one of my thoughts, really. Anyway, let's move on. So, yes, now I remember. So, before when I said that I wanted to drop out, when I said I dropped out of pharmacy and I didn't want to serve Big Pharma, I noticed that this was really a process of me adopting various social roles, and this is what what Sam Vaknin talks about. By this he talks about how we as humans we adopt various social roles to see where we fit in the most, which social role is most suited to our identity and personality. So after I quit pharmacy, as I said, I finished this degree in history and international relations. Then I tried to complete a degree in philosophy. Looking back in hindsight, I don't think I was ready for this degree in philosophy. I think I was too immature intellectually. I think I wasn't ready intellectually for this course. I want to embark again. I want to try again. I think in Poland this time I want to complete a master's in philosophy because I think this will really help me clarify my thoughts, and it will reflect my academic level, I think, to a more accurate level. But yes, after I dropped out of my philosophy degree, I started teaching English. So I taught English abroad in Russia, in Poland, and then in the UK as well. And I tried various other social roles. I worked in admin, I worked in logistics, I worked as a delivery driver. So all of these were a way of me trying to find myself, I guess. And life is beautiful. The older you get, obviously life is tragic, but it's beautiful at the same time. And you notice that the mistakes you made were ultimately to your own benefit. You learn from your mistakes, from your past failures, and you become stronger and more responsible as a result. But anyway, this is what I wanted to clarify. And if the viewer, if you are lost at this moment in time, I wouldn't be worried. You have to try different roles. You have to discover yourself and understand yourself. And this only happens by trying and failing. And eventually you get there. It takes a while. Obviously, I'm still on the process. There's still a lot of things I need to figure out in my life and arrange. But I know I'm on the right path, and because of this, I'm very happy, and my mental health has improved as a result. But yeah, so going back now to the book, because this book was brilliant. So, what is the difference between the intellectual, the philosopher, and the academic? So, as I said, the philosopher, he hides in his ivory tower. He enters his ivory tower. He closes the wooden doors, and he creates this metaphysical system, which is like a virtual. It's like a virtual system of thought that he projects himself onto in order to escape taking action and speaking with his own voice. And this is a brilliant thought that Fuller had. Because the intellectual, he is the opposite. He is completely opposite to this. He doesn't enclose himself in a wall of metaphysics. Obviously, he understands the importance of metaphysics, but he only uses one form of metaphysics, which is reductionism. And not the scientific reductionism that reduces everything to matter and chemistry, etc., but a reductionism that appeals to the common man and the common citizen in understanding reality and society. So this is what I wrote down here. The intellectual is the thinker who puts thought into action and uses his own voice, preferring not to revert to the safe haven of metaphysics. The academic, on the other hand, because the academic constantly needs funding and money to pursue his goals, he has to serve his client's interests. So in some sense, he is restricted. Yes, the academic is restricted because he requires funding. Yes, from the university, and therefore he cannot play the role of the intellectual. So let's go a bit deeper now into the intellectual and some peculiarities, some criticisms we could level at the intellectual, but ultimately why we need intellectuals in our social life. Yes, so definitely the intellectual thrives on conflict and creates controversy by exposing the presuppositions of the philosopher while also questioning the integrity of the academic. And questioning the integrity of the academic is important because a lot of academics, because they're a part of a system, sometimes they are afraid to break out of the system to express their true views, because then they would lose their jobs, they would lose their source of income, and therefore their life would crumble. Yes, so obviously this is understandable, but here the intellectual can help. Yes, to break down the barriers and improve society. So when we think of the academic, we can think of, for example, Oppenheimer. So Oppenheimer was an academic, but he was kind of beholden to the government, the US government, which ultimately led to the creation of the atomic bomb that killed millions of innocent lives. And when we think about this is a personal tragedy of Oppenheimer's. He obviously didn't mean it. He obviously didn't mean to do this, but if there was an intellectual around, perhaps this event could have been averted. It could have been avoided, because the intellectual would have questioned the integrity of building this atomic bomb. And therefore, when we picture the intellectual, we can think of him as this gadfly. Yes, this annoying gadfly, the perennial gadfly, who's annoying. Yes, we don't like him, but he shocks us. Yes, he shows us that we're perhaps on the wrong path, and offers a way out. So from the philosophical perspective, the intellectual, he secularizes the Cartesian vision of skepticism by creating oppositional consciousness. And this is true. I've noticed that I am a bit like this, definitely. I know perhaps many would say this is toxic, but I don't think so. Ultimately, it leads to the greater good. And well, why does it lead to the greater good? Because there is good and evil. So there's so much talk in the modern world that evil doesn't exist, good doesn't exist, it's all relative. I don't know. I think I disagree. I think there is good, there is evil, and the intellectual recognizes this and tries to fight against the evil forces in the world. But here, this is an important point, that the intellectual also recognizes the face of evil as a part of his own soul. And this is why the intellectual is different to, say, an ordinary criminal. Yes, so a criminal would commit a crime or something rash in order to fight against the system, whereas the intellectual constantly toes the line and tries to reach a compromise, we could say. Yes, and this is where some criticism could be leveled at the intellectual, because he is perhaps a bit lukewarm, or he is not assertive enough in the face of evil, perhaps. I don't know if this is true ultimately. Everyone, no one's morally perfect. We're all sinners. So the intellectual shouldn't really worry about this. If someone's accusing him of this, you can just make a rebuttal and say that the other person also is a sinner. Yeah. But what is key when we think about the mind of the intellectual? What's peculiar about the mind of the intellectual? And here Fuller again was brilliant, because he notices that the intellectual is affected by paranoia, and he has a paranoia of the split mind. And I've noticed that I have this kind of paranoia of it. I have this split mind. I'm constantly at war with myself in a positive sense, because I'm thinking a lot. I'm trying to understand reality and arrive to a more coherent picture when it comes to the state of affairs in front of us now. But what the intellectual must do to overcome this kind of paranoia is to, well, according to Fuller, I don't know if I agree with him here, but according to Fuller, he needs to approach the paradox of both Russell and Jean-Paul Sartre. And here I don't have more to say at the moment. I don't know exactly what Fuller means. I think when he talks about Sartre, he's talking via the lens of existentialism. So the intellectual has to he has to take action. Yes, he can't just ruminate. He has to start acting. Yes, in order to make a change. Whereas Russell, I haven't read any of Russell's books yet. So Bertrand Russell, he was a well-known analytic philosopher, and very British in his style of thought. He was a logical positivist. I know he had some dodgy views about world government. I don't really agree with him here on world government. But I'm sure he when it comes to logic and the structure of language, he definitely has a lot of interesting things to say. But I haven't read any of Russell, so I don't want to comment here. But yes, definitely. I understand what Fuller's getting at. I know what he means. The intellectual, he has this paranoia of the split mind, and this paranoia, this split mind, has to be managed, and ultimately the intellectual has to transcend this paranoia by reaching a higher level of order. And obviously, this can be done by approaching the paradox in different ways, via the thought of different philosophers and thinkers, such as, well, here Fuller provided Russell and Sartre as a solution. I think I will have other solutions, but as I get older, this will be revealed. So in the economic sphere, this is what I really liked. This thought of Fuller's was brilliant. The ancient intellectual acts like Robin Hood, someone who toes the line between the rich and the poor. So let's see, Robin Hood. Robin Hood character analysis. Robin Hood is a legendary charismatic outlaw and master archer who steals from the rich to provide for the poor, operating from Sherwood Forest. As a noble rebel, he embodies justice against oppression, often fighting the corrupt sheriff of Nottingham. He is depicted as a courageous strategic leader with a strong moral code, albeit sometimes proud or reckless. And yes, the intellectual is a bit like this, isn't he? So he's trying. Well, here a thought came to my mind about dialectics. So the intellectual engages in dialectics in order to kind of exactly toe the line between, if we are talking about the economic sphere, between the rich and the poor. So now a few of my own thoughts, and yes, thoughts about the intellectual and where we can criticize him. So the peculiarity of the intellectual boils down to the fact that he picks and chooses from various disciplines, and this is necessary. I think a true intellectual, he has to read up on everything, a bit on history, sociology, philosophy, politics, international relations. I would argue even popular science. So science, the intellectual has to engage in science to some degree. Of course, it's not possible for the intellectual to have a grasp of all of these subject areas. That's impossible. Right? You need the mind of God, but definitely definitely the intellectual should aim for this. And because the intellectual does this, and because he doesn't specialize, he doesn't like to become a specialist. He prefers to be a generalist. This is actually a blessing in disguise, because the intellectual comes to a more coherent worldview and a more coherent picture of reality that is based on common sense wisdom. And so the intellectual is able to appeal to the ordinary human. This is what I wrote, to the ordinary human and his capacity for reason. And he realizes how all people matter, because every individual person has access to reality. We are all connected, actually, unconsciously. I believe this is true. As I get older, I notice this. And yes, this is why the intellectual is so important. With regards to Continental and Analytic philosophy, I liked Fuller's analysis of how the intellectual is able to see both the good and the bad in these strands of philosophy. So Continental philosophy is more broad. It's a one-stop shop for the mind, as Fuller wrote. So, stop shop for the mind. This is an idiom. Mind. One-stop shop. Well, you get where I'm coming from, yes? So here they're talking about a business, but when it comes to ideas, Continental philosophy, they provide an answer to your questions, basically. And if you read any Continental philosopher and you accept his view, then ultimately you don't need to read any more books, or you don't have to really engage in more thought. So this is what Fuller is talking about. But then this is not a good thing, because if we rest on our laurels and don't try to expand our knowledge, then we could be led astray. Yes, we fall into ignorance, which is also not a good thing. Now, when it comes to analytic philosophy, Fuller noticed how, because analytic philosophy is based on logic and the penetrating analysis of language, in order to reveal that many philosophical questions are actually just a form of sophistry, we could say. This is how I interpret analytic philosophy and Fuller's view. But yes, this is a good thing. But then Fuller also criticizes this way of doing philosophy, because it misses the wood. It misses the wood for the trees, yes? Misses the forest for the trees, sorry. This is what I wanted to say. So exactly, someone who cannot understand the overall situation or the big picture. So this is definitely true. Sorry, I need to close the window. The planes are quite loud here, so the sound is interfering a little bit, so I had to close the window. But yes, the analytic philosophers are definitely a victim of this. Not a victim, but they are a perpetrator of this error. They don't see the big picture. They focus too much on little details without kind of broadening their mind and noticing more things about what's going on and the issues facing humanity, etc. So now let's go into the criticisms that can be leveled at the intellectual. So definitely one criticism is that he is a bit of a parasite because he feeds on the work of other people without producing anything original of his own. Now this is true, but then again, there has to be someone who is able to link the dots. Because if there isn't, then we don't arrive at a coherent picture. We miss the forest for the trees. So the intellectual is needed. He is needed. And so the intellectual would rebut these claims, both of the philosopher and the academic, by noting how the first is beholden to his metaphysical claims, divorced from reality. So there are a lot of philosophers are like this. They're in like a dream world. They're in a dream world, right? They don't have contact with reality. While the other is beholden to economic forces and client interests. So here the academic, obviously, yes. And a typical I like this section from the book, where Fuller goes into how analytic philosophers refute the intellectual. And they do this by conjuring up the village skeptic and the self-refuting relativist in order to avoid dealing with a real social scientist, that is, the intellectual. So they create straw men, obviously. They create straw men. The village skeptic is a straw man, yes. So yes, they characterize the intellectual as a village skeptic who this is kind of a manipulation tactic and a projection, yes. And then the self-refuting relativist. So the self-refuting relativist is the sophist, yes. So they view the intellectual as the sophist, whereas in actual fact the opposite is the case. Usually a lot of philosophers they're actually sophists. And here we come. David Icke comes to mind, and he is this kind of sophist-like character. He's a sophist because he promotes Gnosticism for the masses, and he does this in order to appear profound. But in actual fact, he actually really isn't profound. He doesn't. Half the time I don't think he knows what he's talking about, and he doesn't appeal to the public spiritedness of humanity, which intellectuals are actually able to do. And this is why David Icke now, if you observe him, he has this mentality of, oh, I'm better than everyone, I know more, everyone's in the wrong, I'm in the right, only I have access to the truth. Obviously when he was younger as well, he said, I'm the son of God and all this nonsense, right? So he is a flawed thinker, definitely. And you should be wary, really. You should never, this is one piece, brilliant bit of advice that I can give my viewer now, because I was a victim of, not a victim, but it was my own fault, but you really need to be wary of putting all your eggs into one basket. This is what I've noticed. So don't put your hopes into one thinker and one person, because trust me, it's not the right thing to do. You need to open your mind and listen to different perspectives. Do your own research, read up on books, read different books, just books that appeal to you, that you find interesting, and come to your own view. Yeah, your conscience will never let you down. It will never let you down, and therefore, this is the way. This is the right way to go about things. So yes, I alluded to this earlier. Intellectuals reify reductionism, which is a type of reductionism that upholds ordinary experience. This is key. Ordinary, yes, our day-to-day life, our normal life, and logic. They maintain the public character of humanity, and this is needed more than ever now, because people are so divided. They're trapped in the world of the cyberspace. Obviously, this is a bit of a paradox now, because I'm here in the cyberspace spreading this message. So I'm a bit of a hypocrite here. I guess that's true, but I'm trying to make an impact. Yes, trying to make an impact. I'm speaking my mind. I'm speaking from experience. I'm speaking from what I've learned from books, etc. Yes. So now I'd like to come to a close. Slowly but surely, I'll be coming to a close now, and I'd like to return to the point about paranoia. So I think this is the most important point in the book. The intellectual, he is touched by paranoia, and if the intellectual is to become successful, he needs to overcome this paranoia, because if he doesn't, then he will fail. He won't become a hero, yes? And a key strategy that the intellectual can adopt to overcome this paranoia is through imagination. And through imagination, he is able to neutralize the paradox. So what is imagination? Imagination is just basically imagining a better future, Staying optimistic, not falling into pessimism. Because this falling into pessimism is an easy option. I've done this. I've been a victim of. I've been a perpetrator of this. I have been weak. I have fallen into pessimism. And ultimately, it's the wrong strategy. I think it's not good to fall into pessimism, into depression. You need to constantly fight and fight and fight. It's the only way really to move forward. And this is the beauty of the intellectual. By imagination, by the fact that he's able to imagine a better world, he is able to make a positive contribution to society. And yes, that's the end of my video. Quite a long one today, but I have a lot of passion. I have a lot of passion for this topic. This book really helped me understand myself much more. So we've got a bit of coffee here. So I like to have one coffee in the morning. I've got this cup here, but first coffee. So guess there's some link there. Yes? Images, symbols, signs. This is another video I actually want to make in the future about how there are signs and symbols and images that the universe sends to us. And when we use our sense of logic, we notice that there are some patterns appearing. And there is a guide above us. God is above us, who is leading us onto the right path. And perhaps I'll make a video about this in the near future. So yes, I'd like to end my video with this quote, and this is from Steve Fuller, and it goes as like follows: Metaphysicians are like ventriloquists, afraid, incapable, or unwilling to speak in their own voice. And that's a brilliant quote, I think. Brilliant quote. So yes, if you enjoyed the video, if you found it interesting, if it helped you in any way, don't forget to like and subscribe. It'll help me grow the channel, because I want to grow this channel. I want to spread more vital information, and information that I think will help a lot of people out there. Also, if you really did enjoy the video, consider supporting the channel at Buy Me a Coffee. You can find the link in the description, and yes, any help will be much appreciated. So that's the end of the video. Thanks for listening, and all the best.